You know exactly what you need to do, but something keeps holding you back. Day after day, you watch others succeed while you remain stuck in the same patterns that have defined your life for years. You've read the books, watched the videos, and collected enough knowledge to transform your life 10 times over, yet here you are, still spinning your wheels. What if I told you it's not your lack of information, resources, or even talent that's holding you back? It's a set of invisible behaviors that Napoleon Hill identified decades ago. Behaviors you're unconsciously repeating every single day that guarantee your failure. In the next few minutes, I'm going to reveal these sabotaging patterns and show you exactly how to break free from them once and for all. Your greatest enemy has never been external. It has always been within. Every morning, you wake up a prisoner, not to your circumstances, but to your mindset. The bars of this cell aren't made of steel. They're forged from your own thoughts, habits, and the invisible narratives you've accepted as truth. Napoleon Hill spent 25 years studying the most successful people in the world. And his most shocking discovery wasn't what made them succeed, was what caused others to fail. The behaviors of a perdedor, a loser, aren't random. They're systematic, predictable, and devastatingly effective at keeping you trapped. When Andrew Carnegie commissioned Hill to study success, he wasn't interested in surface-level tactics. He wanted to understand the fundamental differences in how winners and losers think. What Hill discovered was that success leaves clues, but so does failure. And most people are following the failure blueprint without even realizing it. The difference between where you are and where you want to be isn't just knowledge, it's behavior. And behavior stems from mindset. Your mind has been programmed with certain beliefs that trigger certain actions that create certain results. This isn't philosophy, it's cause and effect. Right now, at this very moment, you have a choice. You can continue to accept the programming that has limited you so far, or you can decide that today is the day you begin rewiring your mind for success. Which will you choose? Procrastination is not laziness, it's fear disguised as rationalization. You've done it 1,000 times. You know you should make that call, write that proposal, have that difficult conversation, or start that project, but you find a perfectly reasonable excuse to do it tomorrow instead. This isn't a minor bad habit. Napoleon Hill identified procrastination as one of the primary deadly behaviors that separate achievers from everyone else. When Thomas Edison was working on the light bulb, he didn't say, "I'll try that filament tomorrow." When Henry Ford was building his first automobile, he didn't put off solving problems until he felt more inspired. And when Howard Barnes spent years working without pay alongside Andrew Carnegie before becoming his right-hand man, he didn't procrastinate on proving his value. Procrastination gives you a momentary sense of relief while simultaneously stealing your future. That comfort you feel when you put something off is actually the sedative that keeps you mediocre. It's the invisible tranquilizer that ensures you never experience the discomfort that leads to growth. Every time you say later, what you're really saying is, "My dreams can wait." But life doesn't wait. Opportunities don't wait. And the person you could become is getting tired of waiting for you to show up. Ask yourself honestly, what important action have you been putting off? And more importantly, what is this procrastination really costing you in terms of your growth, wealth, and fulfillment? Is the temporary comfort worth the permanent regret of a life half-lived? Without a definite purpose, you become a victim of circumstance instead of a creator of destiny. Napoleon Hill's first principle in Think and Grow Rich is crystal clear. Everything begins with a definite purpose backed by a burning desire. Yet here you are, drifting through life, reacting to whatever comes your way, with goals that change with the weather. This lack of definite purpose isn't just a minor weakness, it's a behavior that ensures your failure as reliably as gravity ensures a dropped object will fall. When Henry Ford set his mind to creating an affordable automobile for the average American, he didn't have sort of a goal. When Thomas Edison declared he would create a practical electric light, he didn't have a kind of purpose. Their purposes were definite, specific, and burned within them with such intensity that temporary failures, even thousands of them, couldn't extinguish their resolve. Look at your own life honestly. Do you have a purpose so clear, so definite, that you could write it on a single index card? Or do you have a vague wish list of things that might be nice to have someday? The difference between these two approaches is the difference between power and weakness, between directed energy and wasted potential. Every morning when you wake up, does your definite purpose pull you out of bed with excitement? Or do you hit snooze because there's nothing specific compelling you forward? This isn't about motivation, it's about having a target so clear that your mind can't help but move toward it. What is your definite purpose? Not what sounds good or what others expect of you, but what burns within you. Define it now, with absolute clarity, or accept that you've chosen to behave like someone destined for mediocrity. The choice and the consequences are yours alone. Your mind is being programmed by the people around you, whether you realize it or not. Napoleon Hill called it a mastermind alliance, the principle that your mind will inevitably absorb the dominant thoughts and behaviors of those you associate with most closely. But what happens when those associations are with people who think, speak, and act like perdedors? The answer is brutal in its simplicity. You become one of them. Look around you right now. Who are the 5 people you spend the most time with? What are their attitudes toward work, money, opportunity, and growth? Are they constantly complaining or consistently creating? Do they blame circumstances or master them? Do they talk about ideas or about other people? Your answers reveal more about your future than any horoscope ever could. Edison didn't surround himself with people who told him electric light was impossible. Carnegie didn't associate with those who viewed wealth as evil or unattainable. And Henry Ford didn't spend his evenings with friends who mocked his vision of putting America on wheels. Every conversation you have is either elevating your thinking or diminishing it. Every relationship is either pushing you toward your definite purpose or pulling you away from it. This isn't about elitism, it's about environment. Plants don't grow well in toxic soil, and minds don't flourish in toxic company. Today, right now, you face a decision that will echo through every area of your life. Will you continue to allow negative associations to program your mind for failure? Or will you deliberately seek out and create relationships that demand your growth? Your future is waiting for your answer. The moment you blame someone else, you surrender your power to change. There's a behavior so common, so accepted, that most people don't even recognize it as self-sabotage. The habit of blaming others for your circumstances. Napoleon Hill observed that this single behavior was nearly universal among those who failed to achieve their desires, yet almost entirely absent among those who succeeded. When Thomas Edison's laboratory burned to the ground, destroying years of work and irreplaceable records, did he blame the fire department for not arriving sooner? Did Ford blame his workers when early models failed? Did Carnegie blame the economy when facing setbacks? No, because they understood a fundamental truth. Blame is the language of losers. Every time you point a finger at someone else for your current situation, you're behaving exactly as perdedors behave. Every time you say, "I would succeed if only my spouse was more supportive," or "I'd be further ahead if my boss appreciated me," Or, I'd be wealthy if the economy was better. You're surrendering the very power you need to transform your life. The most successful people in history faced discrimination, economic depression, personal tragedies and failures that would crush the spirit of most. What separated them wasn't better circumstances, it was their refusal to give away their power through blame. Look at your own life with unflinching honesty. Where have you been using blame as an excuse for inaction? Where have you surrendered your power by making others responsible for your results? This moment, right now, is your opportunity to reclaim that power by accepting total responsibility for where you are and where you're going. Will you continue the perdidor's habit of blaming others, or will you embrace the achiever's practice of owning your life completely? The quality of your future depends on your decision. The size of your success is determined by the size of your surrender. Napoleon Hill discovered that almost everyone starts pursuing their goals with enthusiasm, but 98% quit at the first, second, or third obstacle. This isn't just a weakness, it's a behavior pattern that guarantees failure as certainly as jumping from a plane without a parachute guarantees a fatal landing. Are You Darby's uncle stopped drilling for gold just 3 feet from one of the richest veins in Colorado. After investing years of effort and thousands of dollars, he quit when the going got tough. He then sold his equipment for a fraction of its value to a man who called in an engineer and discovered they had stopped just short of massive success. That story isn't just history, it's a perfect metaphor for your life. How many times have you started something with excitement only to abandon it when results didn't come quickly enough? How many diets, business ventures, relationship improvements, or personal growth practices have you begun with enthusiasm only to discard them at the first sign of difficulty? This isn't occasional behavior for most people. It's a life pattern. Edison failed 10,000 times before creating a working light bulb. Ford went bankrupt multiple times before revolutionizing the automotive industry. Colonel Sanders was rejected 1,009 times before someone said yes to his chicken recipe. The difference between these individuals and the masses isn't talent or luck, it's their behavior in the face of rejection and temporary defeat. Right now, you're standing at a crossroads. Behind you is a trail of abandoned projects, unfulfilled potential, and discarded dreams. Ahead of you is the opportunity to develop the one quality that virtually guarantees success: persistent action in the face of all obstacles. Which path will you choose? Will you continue behaving like someone destined for mediocrity? Or will you commit to persistence regardless of temporary setbacks? Fear doesn't prevent failure, it ensures it. Napoleon Hill identified 6 basic fears that paralyze action: the fear of poverty, criticism, ill health, loss of love, old age, and death. But he made a discovery that's even more profound. Most people are so paralyzed by their fears that they never take enough action to discover whether those fears are even justified. Think about the last major opportunity you let slip by. Was it because you logically analyzed it and determined it wouldn't work? Or was it because you felt a knot in your stomach, a tightness in your chest, and then found rational reasons to avoid taking action? If you're honest with yourself, you know the answer. When Howard Barnes positioned himself to work for Andrew Carnegie without pay, do you think he was fearless? When Edison continued after thousands of failures, was he free from doubt? When Ford faced bankruptcy and public ridicule, did he proceed without anxiety? Of course not. The difference wasn't the absence of fear, it was their behavior in the presence of fear. The average person uses fear as a signal to retreat. The achiever uses it as a signal to advance. The perdidor says, "I'm afraid, so I'll wait until I feel confident." The winner says, "I'm afraid, which means I'm on the edge of growth, so I'll act now. Every time you allow fear to dictate your actions, or more precisely, your lack of action, you're behaving exactly as those who fail have always behaved. You're following the blueprint for mediocrity as surely as if you had a manual. In this moment, right now, you face the same decision that determines destiny. Will you allow your fears to control your behavior, or will you feel the fear and act anyway? Your answer to this question reveals more about your future than any fortune teller ever could. Indecision is a decision to remain at the mercy of circumstances. When Napoleon Hill analyzed thousands of failures, he found a behavior so common it was nearly universal: the habit of postponing decisions. Not just difficult decisions or decisions. These people had developed a pattern of waiting for the perfect time, the perfect information, or the perfect feeling before making choices. But that perfect moment never arrived. Look at the major areas of your life right now: your career, relationships, health, finances, and personal growth. How many important decisions have you been postponing? How long have you been thinking about it? How many times have you told yourself, "I'll decide later," or "I need more information"? This isn't prudence, it's the behavior of someone afraid to take ownership of their life. When Henry Ford decided to produce the Model T against the advice of virtually every consultant, he didn't have perfect information. When Edison decided to pursue the electric light despite universal skepticism, he didn't have a guarantee of success. When Carnegie decided to sell his steel company for what was then the largest amount ever paid for a commercial enterprise, he didn't have a crystal ball. The quality of your life is determined by the quality of your decisions. But you can't make quality decisions if you don't make decisions at all. The habit of postponing choices doesn't prevent mistakes, it guarantees stagnation. Right now, as you're reading these words, there are decisions you've been avoiding that could transform your life if you had the courage to make them. Not next week, not when you feel more confident, not when the stars align. Now, will you continue the behavior pattern of indecision that keeps people trapped in mediocrity? Or will you begin creating the habit of decisive action that characterizes every great achiever? Your answer or your lack of one will shape everything that follows. Knowledge without action isn't power, it's potential power that dies within you. In the age of information, this behavior is more prevalent than ever. The endless accumulation of knowledge without corresponding application. Napoleon Hill observed that many of the most educated people he studied were also among the least accomplished. They mistook learning for doing, information for implementation, and knowing for growing. How many books have you read without applying their core principles? How many courses have you taken without implementing their strategies? How many podcasts, videos, and articles have you consumed that contained life-changing information you never put into practice? This isn't education, it's entertainment disguised as growth. Edison had 3 months of formal schooling. Ford had virtually none. Carnegie had minimal classroom education. What they didn't know, they discovered through action. What they couldn't understand through theory, they mastered through practice. They didn't succeed despite their lack of formal education in many ways. They succeeded because their focus was on application rather than endless accumulation. There's a vast difference between knowing the path and walking the path. Every piece of knowledge you acquire but fail to implement doesn't just waste your time, it creates the dangerous illusion of progress while leaving you exactly where you started. This moment is an opportunity to be brutally honest with yourself. Are you using learning as a substitute for doing? Are you hiding behind books, courses, and research instead of taking the action you already know you should take? Are you behaving like someone who will have an impressively educated mind but an empty bank account and unfulfilled dreams? Will you continue collecting knowledge while postponing application? Or will you commit to implementing what you already know, even if imperfectly? Your answer will determine whether the information in your mind becomes power in your life or merely clutters your intellectual attic. Your mind believes every word you tell it, especially the ones you whisper to yourself. Of all the behaviors Napoleon Hill identified as guaranteed paths to failure, none is more insidious than negative self-talk. The internal conversation you have with yourself shapes your beliefs. Your beliefs determine your actions, and your actions create your results. It's a chain reaction that begins with the words you say to yourself when no one else is listening. When you make a mistake and instantly think, "I'm such an idiot," you're not just expressing frustration, you're programming your subconscious mind. When you face a challenge and your inner voice says, "This is too hard for someone like me," you're not being realistic, you're creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you look in the mirror and focus on your flaws rather than your potential, you're not being humble, you're engaging in self-sabotage of the highest order. Edison didn't say to himself, "I'm too old to keep trying," when he was still seeking the right filament after thousands of failures. Carnegie didn't tell himself, "People from my background don't become wealthy," when he was working his way up from poverty. Ford didn't accept the inner voice that said, "You're not educated enough to revolutionize an industry." Your self-talk isn't just commentary on your life, it's creating your life. Every thought you think and every word you speak to yourself is either building your future or dismantling it. This isn't positive thinking, it's mental programming that shapes your behavior at the most fundamental level. Look at the results in your life right now. They are the physical manifestation of your habitual thoughts and self-talk. If you don't like what you see in your external world, you must first change your internal conversation. Will you continue the behavior of negative self-talk that guarantees limitation? Or will you begin the practice of intentional, empowering internal dialogue that creates possibility? The voice you listen to, most your owners waiting for your decision. You've now seen the blueprint that guarantees failure, the behaviors that Napoleon Hill identified as the common denominators among those who never fulfill their potential. The question isn't whether these patterns exist in your life, they exist in everyone's. The real question is whether you'll continue to allow them to dictate your results. Imagine for a moment what your life would look like 1 year from today if you eliminated just 3 of these behaviors. Imagine the transformation that would occur if, instead of procrastinating, you took immediate action on your most important goals. Instead of blaming others, you took complete responsibility for your circumstances. Instead of quitting at the first obstacle, you persisted until you succeeded. Now imagine the compounding effect of changing all 10 of these behaviors. This isn't fantasy, it's cause and effect. Change your behaviors, and you change your life, as surely as changing the trajectory of an arrow changes where it lands. Napoleon Hill spent 25 years studying success and failure because Andrew Carnegie recognized a profound truth. Success isn't accidental, and neither is failure. Both follow patterns that can be identified, learned, and either adopted or avoided. The choice before you right now is stark in its simplicity. Will you continue to act like a perdedor, engaging in the very behaviors that guarantee your failure? Or will you begin, starting today, to act in accordance with the principles and practices that have created success for generations of achievers? The knowledge is now yours. The awareness is now yours. The decision is now yours. And the consequences, whether magnificent or mediocre, will be yours as well. Make your choice.